Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going fabulous. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, today we're going to create two projects for Simon Says Stamp. We're using a couple of the brand new items in the Born to Sparkle release, and I'm loving this color wheel. This is a 6-inch circle that looks like a color wheel. Could be a bullseye too for masculine cards. I think it's fun, or maybe even a spider web for Halloween. That's immediately what I first see when I see this color wheel, but we're going to make it a traditional color wheel today. Actually, we're going to make two cards. So I brought in my Misty, my stamping platform here, and we're going to add our stamp and a half sheet of Nina Classic Crest Solar White cardstock. I'm going to ink this up with Memento Tuxedo Black ink and stamp it on my panel. I'm using Memento because we're going to color in our color wheel with Copic markers. And then I'm going to stamp another color wheel. I didn't leave the coloring in only because I actually was having a little bit of a problem. I didn't realize some of my markers had dried up. So, I mean, I kept coloring and coloring, but I did leave the colors that I used on this second color wheel that we're going to create. I'll show you that in just a minute, but I will take a picture of it with all the colors of Copic markers that I used and put it over on my blog if you guys want to check it out. But it's a pretty good size color wheel. And once we have this done, we're going to go ahead and get to coloring. I'm going to show you the basics, how I colored. And I thought it'd be fun for the first project to use my 100 black Copic marker. I thought we would add some black shaded in areas. I wanted to use a trio of markers, but obviously the color wheel has lots more sections than 5 in total. But so what I'm going to do is black out some of the sections, but I don't want them to be I want them to be kind of scattered, so I'm just basically marking them on this first color wheel, and then I'll take my time and then fill it in, and I'll show you that in a minute. I'm just kind of figuring out which color. Some of them will have 2 blackout spots, and then some just have 1. And there is a method to my madness, but I just like the contrast with the black here. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and take my marker and just fill it in carefully, trying not to go outside the lines. I guess it doesn't matter if you go outside the lines on the outside piece, only because you're going to end up cutting that off anyway. But just carefully filling them in. I'm going to continue around all the places that have the black. I'm going to do the same process too. Once I have a few done, I'll just continue on and share how I'm going to color in the color wheel. Now, once you black them out, you're still basically going to have 4 sections. I'm not worried about the center section, but we're going to color in the same way we would do ink blending almost. I'm starting with the lightest on the very bottom. The mid-tone will be in that middle section, and then the lightest, or the darkest rather, will be on the very end, on the very edge of the cardstock. So this is our mid-tone. These are actually the B family. I have B, this is B14. First one was B12, and then I have B18 that we're going to color in with the very last. And I'm going to do this with a rainbow of colors. Now, if you want to go online and Google a color wheel, that can kind of give you a guide. I basically know this already. I had taken some art classes, so I know basic color wheel. So it was easy for me. But go online, Google color wheel, and you can have one printed up and right next to you as you color. Okay, there is one. Next color coming in, I'm going to be using my blue greens. These are kind of teal colors. And I'm going to do the same thing. Start off with the lightest, put it at the very bottom. Again, we're skipping that center piece. And after we have our lightest, we'll add our mid-tone. Just carefully going next to it. And you can see that the colors are not exactly matching the one before it because we have that blackout area. So this mid-tone is one section lower than the regular blue colors. I just love the way this turned out. But I could just continued on off camera, and now I'm taking my black Memento marker, just going around the edges since I did fussy cut it out, and cleaning up those lines. And I actually went a little crazy and got a black ink mark on one of my green panels there, but that's okay because I'm going to end up trimming it off. there's my color wheel. Again, I'll list this. I just wrote in all the colors that I used. I'll take a picture of it and put it over my blog if you guys want to know the colors. But it was a good way to find out what colors I needed to refill because a lot of my markers were dry. Okay, now I'm going to grab my A2 size card front, my panel, and you can see that there's going to be a little bit overlapping, but that's okay. Before we adhere it, now it's a Born to Sparkle release, so I wanted to add some sparkles, and that's where the black came in. I'm going to use my glossy accents. You could use Journey Glaze or any kind of lacquer pen and go over the black areas on your color wheel. I'm just going to do a couple and then I'll continue on because we're going to eventually let this dry. Next, I'm going to bring in some coarse iridescent glitter. I love doing this on black cardstock, guys. I just think it looks so neat. I'm going to add some glitter over the glossy accents, and then when it dries it's going to set in there, and then I just love the way it looks, kind of galactic. But I'm going to continue on all the black areas. So we have now a sparkly color wheel, kind of goes with our new release. Now I'm going to set this aside to dry, clean up my work surface, and then for my sentiment, we're going to use one of the brand new sentiments from this release also. This is called the Swoopy Thank You. I'm going to take some double-sided foam adhesive and add it to some black cardstock. If I do this, you want to make sure that you trim off the excess because that sticky will adhere to the plates of your die cutting machine. So you just don't want none of that adhesive showing. I'm going to die cut out Thank You with the black here, and then with the white I'm going to die cut it out with just a plain piece of white fun foam, and then also I'm going to die cut it out with white cardstock. We're going to pop this up, but I want the entire thing popped up. After we have our U die cut out with the fun foam, it's a pretty thin swoopy U, but it's so pretty. I did have to work with it a little bit, and sometimes when you add fun foam behind it, it loses its shape. So you have to just work it in. That's the great thing about the outline of the U. It's easy to follow. But I'm going to go ahead and add my thank. And again, this is popped up with foam adhesive, so we got some dimension here. And I love the way, look, I love how solid it looks. Okay, that is our thank you. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside, and we're going to grab our back foam piece. I'm going to remove the release paper and we're going to pop this up too. Basically my first card's going to be very simple, so I wanted to amplify it a little bit with dimension. So of course you could skip this. You guys know I love dimension, but if you wanted to skip this part, you don't need to add all this dimension. But that's my thank you. Now I had waited a little while, actually quite a long while, to get my panel to dry, and then once it is dry, I'm going to lightly tack it with some foam adhesive, or actually with some tape. I'm going to tack it down here. I'm just making sure it's centered. And then I'm actually using the grid lines on my mat with the lines on the color wheel to center it. Makes it a lot easier. I'm going to trim off the left, and then we'll trim off the right. I used a lot of adhesive. I guess I didn't really tack it down. At first I thought we'll just adhere it straight to our card base, but then changed my mind and thought we'd pop it up. How about that? So I slightly removed it. I'm going to add my color wheel to the card front, which is a standard A2 size card front. It's top folding, makes it nice and easy. And there's a lot of sparkle on here, so I'm not going to do anything else. We're just going to add our color wheel, and then I'll remove the release paper off of my Swoopy Thank You. Put that right in the middle, covering that white area that we didn't color with our code markers. Just centering it. And after I got my thank you on there, I thought, you know what, we need just a little bit more. Even though there's a lot of sparkle, I had that leftover piece that we die cut out the thank you with. I want to bring in some small heart dies and die cut out the same size small heart that will fit in each one of those sections on my color wheel. And we're going to add some hearts to it, and I just think that looks a little bit better. Makes it a little more fun. I'm going to die cut out a few more hearts here. You can see my camera shaking a bit, and we're going to just continue filling in just basically 1 or 2 hearts per section. And that is card number 1. Now for card number 2, I need a background, so I'm going to be using the Simon's Stamp Halftone Square background stamp. This is for part of last month's release. Love this because there's a gradient of these little squares, and actually when you stamp them it almost looks like a circle. Actually, I think they maybe are circles, but they look like squares. But I'm going to ink it up with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Clean off my stamp. I got some dust bunnies on there. Probably from my cleaning cloth. But I'm going to ink this up really good. And then I did use my heat gun to dry it. VersaFine stays wet longer, and if you don't dry it with your heat gun or let it air dry, you're going to smear it. Trust me. Okay, I did trim down my panel to a card front size, so it's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And then I took those same Copic markers and die cut out a smaller color wheel, but I didn't add any black area. I didn't black out any areas on this color wheel. Now I cut out the center with a small circle die, but you can skip this part. You can just leave the center in there because your thank you is going to cover it anyway. I'm going to adhere my panel, my halftone square background, with a gradient descending. And then I did do the same thank you with a Swoopy thank you, but this time I added a little bit of my glossy accents over the top of the black cardstock, added a heart at the very end, and then did the same thing with the glitter. Let it dry. And so instead of our background being sparkly, our thank you sparkly this time. Easy peasy. I'm going to go ahead and remove the release paper off of my thank you, and again I created it the same way I did our first one. I'm going to center it here, and I'm going to flip it over. We're going to add foam adhesive behind it, and again you don't have to cut out that center piece. I am going to use my marker to go around the edges. Although I didn't fussy cut this, I think it just gives a cleaner look. This is going to go in the center of this card. And I think I like this one better than the first one. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to bring in my assorted, I want to call it Moonstone, but it's Moonshine confetti mix. And sequin mix, rather. Confetti has no holes. These have holes. But I added a few sequins here and there, and then that is that card. So 2 cards using the color wheel and the Swoopy thank you. If you guys haven't checked out the release, I think you're going to be super excited about it. Lots of fun stuff in this Born to Sparkle release. If you want to see still shots and that color wheel, go visit my blog. I'll list that down below. But I thank you so much for joining me. Have a lovely day, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.